Here's a peek at what guests had to say after the show.
Zach L. asked the panel, is it time to repeal the death penalty? Oh, no one wants to talk.
I actually think so, yeah.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me as a conservative, if I support life, I should support it kind of across the board, and I think that's been a real inconsistency on the right.
Yeah, I mean, I like it in principle. I just think that there's so many times they don't get the right lawyer, you don't know. But when somebody, I'm sure, like they're going to bring the death penalty against the Sarnaev kid, I'm all for killing him.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
I think you just sort of leave him alone in a room with no food or water and a pistol and one bullet. That way you can't really.
So the humane way, Pete.
The humane way.
The problem is, if one person to death who's not guilty, we are murdering people, and we shouldn't do that. It just shouldn't happen.
Okay. Charlie, how can Democrats trust that you won't one day switch back to being a Republican?
Great question.
Once you go back,
Great question. No, listen, if you've seen what I've seen in the leadership of the Republican Party, I don't want to paint too broad a brush, but it is a party that, we talked about earlier, where even Jeb Bush says that it is perceived as anti-women, anti-minority, anti-immigrant, anti-education, anti-environment. I mean, pretty soon there's nobody left in the room. And
you're backing away from the party just because this stuff is true? What kind of loyalty?
Only that?
First of all, I mean, it's a fun question, but I don't think that's ever happened. Is there any precedent for someone actually going back to a party?
I doubt it.
I don't think so. I can't think of one example of someone went, oh, fuck, what did I do?
To be honest,
really should still be a Democrat.
To make a decision like that is not an easy thing to do. And it really isn't. I mean, it's much easier to just conform and try to, make it work out. But for me, like I said earlier, the way Mom and Dad raised my 3 sisters and me, there's no way I could do that and look myself in the mirror and be honest with my core values and what I believe in.
Okay, Tom, as someone involved in combating hunger, what do you think about President Obama signing the Farm Bill today? Oh, yes, Obama did sign almost $1 trillion over 10 years.
Yeah,
I must say, to be fair, it really should be called the food stamp bill. No. Because most of it is, well, it is. Most of it is food stamp. That's a fact.
And most of the food is produced by farms.
Okay, but that's a misleading title, I think.
Now, listen, it's a terrible bill, and I'll tell you why, for a few reasons. One, it cuts $8.9 billion from food stamps. But the real giveaway here is to the insurance companies.
Huge, $1.4 billion a year.
No, let me explain this, how it works. It sounds like a nice thing, insurance for crops, but that's not what this is. It doesn't guarantee your crops, it guarantees your income. And so you're guaranteed 85% of your income. Okay, that's okay, but 62% of the premiums are paid by the government.
Okay.
$7.8 billion of deductibles are paid by the government.
I'm just saying, the facts are this. The bill is $956 billion. $756 is to food stamps.
Yeah.
So it really is the food stamp bill. $200 billion goes to farmers over 10 years.
Let's call it a nutrition bill.
For $20 billion a year, I agree, we should not be giving farmers money to do what they do anyway.
Especially when they can be growing pot.
Right.
Could you get it through this Congress if you called it a food stamp bill, though?
No, you can't separate the bills.
Is that why the two are linked?
No, it was originally linked together to balance the needs of urban areas with rural areas, because
balance the political needs.
Yeah, political.
Yeah, well, also the needs of, not political, because you had the needs of hunger are usually in urban areas, but now it's spread out across the country, so it's changed. But also, it's doubled. In the last, since 2007 because of the recession. That's going to drop automatically on its own when the economy starts to rebound. In fact, it's leveled off already. And so it's not the food stamp bill. It's a nutrition bill, farming bill.
It's coupled because liberals in the city want Democrats to vote for food stamps and welfare programs and vice versa.
I'm thinking the worst part of this bill is the farm part of this bill, and I'm thinking that if it weren't attached with liberal support to the food stamp bill, we could get rid of the farm half, or farm, it's not a half, but I mean the farm section.
No, I don't know about that.
No,
I don't think so.
Well, I think it's very hard in America to ever get rid of any program once it starts.
The ag lobby is way too strong, too.
Well, the grotesque part of the bill is all the pork. It is larded with pork that has absolutely nothing to do with farms or with food stamps. $100 million to promote maple syrup. What?
$20 million for a new catfish office at the Department
of Christmas tree tax. I mean, I thought we banned earmarks.
But 70% of the Tea Party caucus voted for this bill.
Well,
70%.
pox on both their houses, believe me. I asked a Democrat and a Republican member of Congress on Crossfire, how could either of you vote for this? It makes no sense to me, and I think it's a real insult to the American people that
And
they
he
just
said, how can you work next to Newt
stuff
Gingrich?
But here's the
in.
problem. But the bill cut about $16 billion, and more than half of that, between 16 and 23 billion, half of that came from poor people.
Yeah.
Right.
So why?
So you have 850,000 households
Are
for now.
affected, right.
Yeah, they're not going to have as much food as they need.
Right, about $90 less a
Okay.
month.
Jimmy K asked the panel, if you could get President Obama to pass one executive action, what would it be?
Keystone Pipeline. And politically, that would help
Hard.
out a lot of Democrats in red states.
Oh, and that's what we want.
That's what he should want.
That's why it's going to happen.
Does he want the Senate? Does he want to keep the Senate? That's what he should want.
I would
should-
say carbon tax. That's what I would love if I could have.
That's a good one.
But that's the exchange. If you're going to sign XL, get something for it.
Right.
And he
Carbon
could.
tax for it. Learn how to horse trade a little bit.
And he could.
Could he do immigration?
He
Can
could,
they
he
do an
could
immigration
the one thing that he
executive
can
order?
do is he can halt deportations of
Because
non-citizens.
He already did.
This
That
thing-
was his big one already.
No,
He-
with DACA, with
just
the
think
young
what's
ones.
The DREAM Act.
Yes.
To anybody
Dream Act.
about
Yeah.
immigration who isn't a Cherokee or a Sioux. If a Cherokee or a Sioux says, why doesn't this country have the original ethnic makeup that it always had? They've got a point. Not saying I agree with them, but they've got a point. You know?
Okay, SC.
That's an amazing point, if I might.
Yes.
Immigration. It's the fact that the Congress can't get its act together enough to acknowledge that we are the melting pot of the planet and do something right to move forward on this issue is shocking.
What are you?
A lot of things. On my father's side, Greek and Lebanese, and on my mother's side, Irish, Swiss, and a little bit of Welsh.
Did people mispronounce your name when you were a kid? Christ? Hey, Christ.
No.
Christ
no, but
almighty.
I'll tell you the truth. But my first,
For Christ's sakes, get over here.
my first trade mission.
If your parents named you Jesus, that would have been funny.
I committed to go to Israel first. And so I went to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And this is a true story. Robert Wexler was with me, you may remember, former member of Congress and a great guy. And the Jerusalem Post writes, Christ returns to Jerusalem. No, I can't make it up. Isn't it funny?
S.E. Cup, would you agree that it isn't conservatives and that most Americans have a problem with, but the majority of Republicans who appear to care more about their lobbyists and money? Ooh.
I think that's uninspiring on both sides of the aisle to any constituent who's unhappy with their congressman or their senator and they think that they're working for other people instead of for them. I don't think that's just a problem on the right. It's a problem in politics.
But like, for example, when I read that, the first thing I thought of was most Americans are for raising the minimum wage. And I can't think of any reason why Republicans are against that, except that they are in the pocket of big business, who are the only ones who don't want to raise the minimum wage.
Oh, no, there's plenty of economic arguments against raising the minimum wage.
Not really.
But you raise the minimum wage, you raise the cost of labor, there's less labor, and fewer people are hired.
That's been discredited.
100%
That's so not true. That's so not true.
100%
It's not
true.
true.
Study says otherwise.
Yeah,
And it hasn't
that's-
been debunked.
No. I mean,
100% true.
well, this is one of the problems.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
problems with the right
It feels good to raise
when
the minimum wage,
is
but
that
it's
when,
not gonna
is that
work.
is that when they get information, they don't take it into account. I saw Bill O'Reilly with the president, and he asked him questions. This is an hour before the Super Bowl, and he just asked him, questions about things that have already been vetted over and over again. How come the IRS guy came to the White House 158 times? Well, they found out why. Why? It's like information comes in, but it doesn't really sink in.
But have you watched the
also
week
asked the
that's
president-
followed where he's just done an ode to Bill O'Reilly?
yeah.
Where every show has
victory
been
lap.
about his
Yeah.
own interview with the president?
No.
It's going to
amazing.
go down in the annals of broadcast history. That's what he said today.
He
What-
brings people on
His
to
interview.
analyze his
His
interview.
interview.
He's like, how good did I do?
Brings him.
Tell me.
I never asked that around my house.
All right, we gotta go. Thank you very much, everybody.
Real Time with Bill Maher. Ask Bill and his guests your questions right after the show at HBO.com or on Twitter.